Hi, I'm back. I want to do some recounts of my life as a child. Sorry about that. I have a memory of when I was a little girl, and I vaguely remember that I was in a room as a little girl. I believe I was between the age of 3 and 4 years old. And I remember being in a house. I really don't remember what the outside of the house looked like, but I do know that I remember seeing like outside of a room and looked like the wall was painted like a sky blue. I remember sitting on a bed with a lady. She was a very sweet lady. She sort of had a tone when she spoke like me. She was very gentle. And I remember I sat right up under her. And I was always a very small, frail child. My mama always called me sickly. Uh, but I was in the house with this lady. She was talking very gentle with me. She called my name, Tiff, and she was talking to me. And I was sitting right up under her, very happy. And I remember she had this like a little, I don't know if it was a carousel or like a beautiful jewelry box. But anyway, within it, she kept candies, chocolates, and I remember she kept a little money in there as well. And she said, "Here, Tiff," and she gave me some chocolate and she let me play around, I think, with the jewelry box because I found it to be real pretty and with the carousel. Uh, so I was sitting with her, and all of a sudden, someone came in that room. They looked like they had on a pair of blue jeans and a white t-shirt. I do remember the shoes were like brown, like work shoes, like combat boots, but they were brown. They looked sort of like like they were like work boots and they had been worn. So you could see like the scuffing on the boot. I didn't see this man's face, but I knew that by the body build, he was tall and slender. He had on a pair of jeans that were kind of like faded, and as I said, a white shirt and boots, a white t-shirt and boots. So as she and I were talking, I remember he walked through, and for some reason she looked back. I don't even remember him saying anything, but I remember she just looked back, and she looked startled. And the only thing I remember was he was standing there at the door. By the look that was on her face, she wasn't expecting for him to come in there. But I believe she knew who he was. But by the look that I'm seeing, that I could visualize on her face, she felt sort of like a little nervous about him being in there. She said, "What you doing in here?" And that's the only thing I can remember on that block. And then the next thing I can remember is that I was standing outside of a bathroom in the same house. And the bathroom as well was painted like sky blue. And I heard scuffling. I remember being outside of the bathroom door. And the door was shut at that time. I remember before he shut it, I saw he was running water in the tub. Keeping in mind, I didn't see his face, but he was tall. But he wasn't real tall. But he was tall at that time. And I remember him running that tub full of water. And I was standing outside. He had shut me out, and I was standing outside as a little bitty thing, just looking. And he shut that door, and I was just standing out there. And then the next thing I remember is that the firemen were there, the fire chief, they were there, firemen. My thing was, even as a little girl, I didn't see no cops, but I saw firemen. It was a white fireman. And the Holy Ghost keeps speaking, fire chief. And this had to been around like 1972 or 1973. And I remember somebody said, "Who is this little girl?" And the person who was in the house with me, he said, "Oh, I know who she is. I take her home." But I believe that was my home. And I remember him walking me. He walked me around and around. Now, the way he was walking me, we walked a long way. It was as if he was walking me around and around in the circles. I don't know if he was trying to confuse me. He said, I remember his words were, "Do you remember where we went? Do you remember?" Like he was trying to confuse me. "Do you remember how to get back where we going?" And he said, "Do you remember how to get back home?" He said, "I'm going to walk you a certain point, and I want you to go on home." I was a little bitty, about between 3 and 5 years old. And this man walked me to a certain place, and he had walked me, they let him took me, and he walked me around. And when he got to a certain spot, he said, "Go on home." I remember when I walked up there, he said, "When you get there, you knock on the door." But when I knocked on the door, my mama came to the door and she let me in. I don't know if he was standing back, but I remember I was by myself and I knocked on the door. And my mama said, "Tiff, what you doing out here?" And I came on in. That was one memory that I have. And I'll come back with more.